Today I'm going to pass through an NVMe device to a ESXi VM. So let me explain. The first step in the process is, well, logging into vSphere client, the HTML5 interface. I'm going to point to the host, which happens to be a GIGABYTE server. And if we go over to the, we can start at the summary tab. Here it is, the name and type of machine. It's a modest 4-core. Go over to configure, and under storage adapters, you'll see the model 900p, the Optane drive I'm going to pass through, shows up right there. Each device shows as its own controller. A little odd about the 900p in that it doesn't show the word NVMe in there anywhere in the sentence describing the device. Just slight oddness. How about we look here? Okay, so again, you can sort of see the brand names of the devices, and we see NVMe in the description there, and 280 gig for the size, and 512E for the sector size. All right, let's move along. How do you pass through a device like this? Well, scroll down here and go to PCI devices. Now it's showing us a list of pass-through enabled devices, and it's blank. So how about if I go to all PCI devices? This list gets a little wacky and a little bit hard to read. How about I just go to configure pass-through? And this is the list I really want to show you. All right. It's not letting me sort by that name, or sorry, by device name. That's okay, because the 900p is right there, pretty obvious. Scrolling through, do I see anything else that could be it? No. And you'll notice the Ethernet is at X722 there. You can see some other stuff. So not all these devices on a system on a chip like a Xeon like this is, a Xeon 2100 system, you can't necessarily pass through all these devices and have success. But with NVMe, I've had really good luck. I haven't tested it on this particular Optane 900p yet, however, on this particular system either. So who knows what'll happen. But that's the first step. You flag it, you turn it on, it says available pending, you click OK. And under recent tasks here, there you go. It's all done. Now it does want me to reboot the machine for this to take effect. It already told me that, and there it is. One device will become available when this host is rebooted. Let's do it. All right, so when it's done rebooting, it should be good to go. So I finished a reboot here, and this is ESXi 6.7 with this version number. And if we look here in my article about how to update your to the latest ESXi, yeah, I just used this command and it patched me to this level. Anyhow, that's just a little backstory on how I got to 6.7 update 1 express patch 5 with this one command that updated my 6.7 environment right to it. And by the way, this is the local familiar yellow interface for logging in locally over the GIGABYTE virtual KVM viewer, HTML5 viewer right here. Okay, kind of done with that. Let's go back to the vSphere client view of my host and head on over to configure. You might remember configure under PCI devices. We'll now see this shows the status available. So we now have a 900p ready. It's actually a U.2 drive, by the way. Not that really matters, but 2.5-inch small form factor mentioned right there. So it looks like it worked. The reboot and the configuration of the PCI pass-through was a success. So now I'm ready to right-click and do a new virtual machine. And we're going to create a new virtual machine. All right, let's move along. That's the host we wanted on, the one we're on. Okay, what's storage? The descriptor file is going to live somewhere. Let's put on a Samsung 970 EVO. But I'm going to get into the drives in a little bit. Let me circle back and get to that. Compatible with 6.7 or later sounds good to me. Let's fix the operating system to Windows 10 64-bit. We're going to leave security off. We could turn that on, but I'm still going to turn on UEFI anyway. Most people are going to leave that off because it's an option, right? I'm going to crank it up to, why not, 16 gig. I have plenty of RAM in this machine. Okay, a new hard disk, 32. Sure, I'm actually going to use a different C drive, right? The passed through device. So we're going to get into that. Leave networking alone. We do need an ISO file mounted. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I've got a little problem. I've got to move an ISO file over here. So I didn't show you that step, and I don't really want to leave steps skipped. So I'm going to have to deal with that in a little bit after I create the VM. Okay, video card, all that other stuff. I'm just going to leave it alone. So we basically did a default config. I just cranked up the RAM a bit. And we're going to leave the default networking. If we change it to one of the fancier ones, for the network controller, for instance, you'll run into trouble. You could. Let me just leave that alone. Okay, so E1000E is the network type. It's compatible with anything. It'll be seen on the first boots. No driver needed, any of that. Cool. So we've created a VM. Now, the data store, the server, it's got clearly labeled stuff here. Let's make an ISO folder. And let's upload Windows 1809 that I got from the Windows Media Creation utility. So that's now uploading over the network to the system. That's going to take a little while. So remember that VM I said, hey, we've got a little bit of work to do for this VM here. Now we can finish up that work. So the ISO, we need to now point to that ISO. Okay, and say connect. Cool. But what about the C drive? Okay. So I'm going to nuke the hard disk. Go back to settings. So the C drive is gone, and add a new device called PCI device. And there it is. There's only one item available because we only have one item passed through. So that's how we get our C drive. What else do you check? Well, you're on 6.7 update 1. So good news here. Under the VM options tab for firmware, EFI is already turned on. I've been doing this on my VMs for a long time on my videos at 6.5. Well, in 6.7 it's now the default. Looks like secure boot's turned on by default. That's interesting. All right, so firmware EFI, that's a good thing. You need that if you're booting like NVMe devices like we're passing through here. So Windows should have no trouble booting and installing from the mounted ISO right to this Intel Optane drive. We should get pretty good performance too, near native. Okay, so that's done. Now we can't boot quite yet. Why? Because that file transfer is still happening here. All right, so once that's done, I'll go ahead and power it up and we'll get rolling with the Windows 10 install. Okay, the file transfer is now done. And I can head back to the list of VMs and tweak the properties of that VM. Well, don't really need to, right? The DVD image is already mounted. We've already browsed to that file, even though it was in use in the middle of an upload. It's all good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and power that up. But in the summary view, you got this handy dandy screen which shows you it's powered off. I could launch Remote Console from there and get that powered up. Let's drag the Remote Console onto the screen so you can see it. Hit the power button and we have an issue. So when you pass PCIe devices, you can get bit by this. So you want to give a reservation for all 16 gig of memory. What does that mean? Let me just show you. When you add a PCIe device, it's got a yellow bang. Let's expand it. Aha, I blew right past that and should have paid more attention as I was talking to you. And that was if I had only looked at that button. I got a handy dandy button that just takes care of it. So the memory is now reserved. Let me show you. There you go. It turned on that checkbox for me. It's that easy. So I'm going to leave that mistake right in my video because people will often make the same mistake and now you've got a fix. All right. So I hit spacebar, right? I had to quickly go into the UEFI prompt for, hey, where's my C drive? So I hit spacebar. or not where's my C drive, excuse me, do you want to boot from this ISO, or do you want to just continue? And I hit a key on my keyboard to get it to boot off the ISO. Okay, from here on in, it's just a normal Windows install, right? Now, if we want to look around a little bit during the install, we'll do that. We'll look at performance. We'll look at what the files look like on the VMFS file system that VMware has. Custom. Okay, so it found a drive and it's 260 in size. Hey, that makes sense, right? And can't be installed because there's some other file system on there. Well, it's actually VMFS, so I'm repurposing it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the file system that's on there. And now the install can continue because it's got a whole empty drive ready to go. Okay, now we just kind of let her rip, doing a normal install. Now, what are we able to see from the vSphere client while it's busy doing its thing? And what do the files look like on the file system? So let's have a look. Okay, so we have a Samsung 970 EVO that has a folder that was created. In that folder is a bunch of stuff that signifies or represents the VM, including swap and RAM and all that good stuff. All right, and it's passed through. So it's a little bit wonky in that you're not going to see a giant C drive taking up gigabytes of storage. You just see a bunch of little files with a few KB. And they're even labeled over here what they are. All right, so it still had to put the files somewhere even though we deleted the C drive, right? Okay, so that's cruising along. How about performance? So if we look at Monitor tab for this host, this server, go to Overview. Let's see what kind of instrumentation we have for looking at the performance of our host while this VM creation is underway, or Windows 10 install is underway. All right. We're seeing a disk. We're seeing network I/O that settled down after the ISO was transferred, right? So it took a little while for the ISO to move over the network. Some disk I/O going on. Let's look at the disks a little more carefully. Okay, we're showing a SanDisk UltraFit. Not too useful. That's where ESXi is installed on a USB drive. Here we're showing a Samsung drive, not the one we're actually interested in. And then finally UltraFit over here. So we're not getting a look in real time at the disk I/O on a passed through device, unfortunately. How about under advanced? Anything else we can get over there? Let's go to physical disks and let's have a look at the list. Samsung, Samsung. Okay, let's get that a little more legible. All right, what do we have here? A little bit odd. Okay, so we have Samsung, Samsung, USB, and another Samsung. So we have a whole bunch of NVMe devices. And then we have this one mystery device that doesn't have a brand on it. And then we have a purple device as well. Usage, read rate. All right, well, surprising results there. How about storage adapters? Okay, well, let's see. What's the storage adapter we're in question that we're interested in? What's it called? How is it enumerated? So if we look here, it's missing, right? Because we passed it through. Now we have a few left over that are Samsung SM981s or 951s, but those are not what we're interested in here. And if we go to storage devices, notice there's nothing Intel branded at all. So that's how it goes. So none of these VM HBAs are going to be valuable, and they're not showing performance of storage adapters being hit right now, even though we know full well the install is underway and keeping the disk subsystem pretty busy. So that's a disadvantage to passing through a disk. You're not going to see performance counters on what's going on. It makes sense because it's being passed through, so the hypervisor can't see what's going on, presumably. Either way, the GUI is not presenting a way for me to look at the performance. Now, virtual machine. Let's see if the disk for this VM, the VMs show anything. The answer is no. Complete nothingness, as if it's idle. Okay, so enough of trying to look at performance of this VM. Let's head right back to here. And once Windows 10 comes up and we see the desktop, guess what we're going to see in Device Manager for the C drive? You guessed it, the Intel Optane 900P. So I'll go ahead and resume this video when we get to that point. I'll speed up the section. Okay, while it's finishing up, can we use ESXtop from the command line to maybe see some statistics? Well, that's a long shot, but sure, we can give it a try. So I've got PuTTY going here, and I type ESXtop, so I got a SSH session, right, going to the particular host, the server. I press D to get disk view, and to view the entire device name, hit Shift L. All right, didn't do much good. F, B, C, D, E, H. So is this going to do me any good? No. It's going to show the same devices, right? VM HBA. They're all showing nothing. And, well, actually the machine's done being built now, so. Anyhow, it's looking like a no-go for seeing I/O of a pass-through disk. So what do we have here? Right-click on the Start button. Well, you know, this VM's a little busy, right, because it just booted. Go to Device Manager, and under Disk Drive, what do you think you'll see? There you go. And how about Storage Controller? All right. So we have ourselves a successful boot of an Intel 900P passed through to a Windows 10 VM that we created during this video. So that gives you a sense of the process, what it looks like in VMware's vSphere client user interface. And I think that's about it. I guess the only other thing I didn't really show is just that, yeah, you can use host client for a lot of this as well. So host client, meaning you point your browser straight to the one server you have in your lab. Let's say you don't have VCSA appliance tying together a bunch of servers into a cluster and you only have one host. Well, you can still look around at things like storage and see the adapters, but the results are the same. You're not going to see an Intel branded device because it's been passed through. Persistent memory, like a RAM disk. All right. So that's about it. Can't think of what else I'd want to show you in this view. Yeah, it's just a different view. Also a snappy HTML5 based user interface. But same idea here. Oh yeah, if we were to monitor performance, are we going to get anything different? Of course not. It's going to show a bunch of disks. And it shows the last 10 minutes we've been idle, but certainly less than 10 minutes ago, Windows was finishing installing. So yeah. Let's see, what else could we do? Let me get a storage utility in here. Hang on a second. Okay. I've downloaded Windows Disk Benchmark, oldie but goodie. Pretty handy in a situation like this where you're just trying to drive some I/O. All right, so we're driving some writes and then some reads, back and forth between writes and reads for a few seconds of each. So if there was something to be seen, well, this is when you would see it. Okay, auto refresh, I can turn that on. And, well, we already have an answer there. So, do we have anything showing up for disks for this host? And the answer continues to be, despite the auto refresh here happening, probably not, although seeing a little activity there, so that's interesting. Getting any activity over here? Shouldn't need to refresh it. Zilch. Okay, so nothing over there. And here that was a brief spike, but the test is still running. So something was happening, some bit of housekeeping, I don't know. Heck, it could be Windows Update, right? I got a network attached, which I really shouldn't. So I can detach the network device, and that should keep Windows Update and background stuff from doing stuff, right? So it can no longer hit the internet, or any network for that matter, but it can still bang away at the disks. And guess what? We're still seeing 0 everything. All right, so no surprises there. I have a refresh button here, not F5, but it shouldn't be needed. The HTML5 interface generally doesn't need that to get a dynamic view. There, and this horizontal scroll bar goes away if I make it just a little wider. So I think that's about it. Hopefully you found this quick, well, not so quick, look at pass-through of an NVMe device to a particular VM, and in this case it was an Intel Optane device used as a C drive for a Windows 10 build, or excuse me, version 1809, re-released in November, by the way, so the new 1809. And I hope you found this helpful and learned something. Thanks for watching, and thanks for visiting. Tinker Try. IT at home.